Okay, it is new content day here on the JP side, and we are going to be talking about all of it over a series of videos. There's actually a fair bit to talk about different stuff, and I'm going to try and keep the videos runtime a little bit lower. So yeah, for this video, we're going to be talking about Glaciela, we're going to be talking about Creysse, we're going to be talking about the new Water Vision card, just because I think that there's a good amount of synergy to talk there. And then we'll talk about Reviz, we'll talk about Lamega and the summons that have gotten 3 stars. And then after that, we're going to be talking about a few other things to do with some additions to the game that I think are kind of interesting. But in all of these videos, there is something to mention, and that is the fact that June 26th at 8 p.m. Japanese Standard Time, we are going to be having a new live stream. This is going to be... yeah, I can't remember. I think this is the third one of this year already. Anyway, it is on the 26th. It is at around 8 p.m. Japanese Standard Time. It will be going till God knows when. Important things to note, there is going to be a tournament featured on here, as well as they are going to be talking about, what is it? The July content for the game on the Japanese side. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. It doesn't mention anything about a new collaboration or anything that I've seen. Doesn't seem like there's really that much in the way of like they're really pumping this up. So at most you might want to think that maybe there's a returning collaboration for the month of July. Maybe there's something exciting to be said here, but expectations maybe keep just a little bit lower on this one until proven otherwise, but would love to have you there. So I will be restreaming it on the weekend, so you can join me on my Twitch channel. Good timing for them. All right, so now let's get into talking about every single piece of content that we're going to have today. And we'll start with this. This is the brand new Vision card. I think that this is a good place to start, just because, you know, this is going to go into talking about the fact that we have just a lot of water units getting their EX. So maxed out 276 HP, 20 AP, and 164 attack, which goes well with the flavor of this card. For specific unit that is this equipped, you're getting magic resistance of 10%, you're getting attack by 10%, and for the entire party, you are looking at human killer of 25, accuracy of 13. I had to double check that really quickly because it wasn't, for some reason I thought it was 50. Anyway, and single target resistance up by 20. Overall, pretty nice little vision card. Does not have any kind of a vision ability on it. I think the stats are nice. The human killer is obviously the big thing. The human killer is only on physical, and this is, you know, an entirely specific water elemental card. I think it's a nice vision card for sure. There is one thing to be that is a really strong consideration, and that is exactly what kind of account you have, because I don't think that every account is going to benefit from this card, even a little bit, without knowing what the future holds and whether or not there's going to be, you know, a new water elemental character, especially a physical one. Water is a very diverse for damage types, and specifically kind of has a pretty even split between mages and physical units. So you're looking at like Glaciela, you're looking at Creysse, you're looking at Zazin in terms of physical units, and Ramada, and that's kind of the interesting part. Like if you think about those units right there, and people are going to say, well, what about Winter Victoria? What about Winter Ramada? Well, yes, both of those characters are very powerful water physical characters, but are decidedly out of season. And of course, Titus, as he is called by me, from Final Fantasy X, is not a constantly obtainable character. So yes, those 3 characters are specifically characters that will, you know, pretty strongly benefit from this card. But if you take a look at that vision card and like trying to get it to work for maybe just regular accounts, this might be a little bit more of a pass. And even if you don't have Titus like fully maxed, I'm not entirely sure that this vision card is going to be the best, and we'll get into talking about why I think that when we talk about our 2 new EXs here. But there is just something about this vision card that seems either really good or really bad, and I think it's just polarizing in that respect. Yeah, there will be more water physical units in the future, but it's kind of hard to say that, yeah, you should just max this vision card right away. Maybe this is a vision card you can wait and get later. I think it's a great vision card for water and physical. It's just really where that kind of fits in with the current meta and the current available units. It's kind of hit or miss, but again, if you do have the strongest recommendation I could give this card is with with Winter Victoria. Water Victoria is still an accurate way of putting her, but that ranged unit has just proven to be really good. Titus as well, I think, really benefits from this, but Titus also has a little bit of support where I feel like Victoria is just really getting that damage boost would just be way nicer for her. But again, both units and Glaciela, which we'll talk about very shortly, benefit from this vision card. So next up, let's talk about the girl on the vision card, Creysse. This is, a free unit that you could end up getting if you were playing the game at the time, and recently she has also returned on the JP side. And taking a look at her EX, she does get a nice little attack boost. Her stats get generally quite nicely boosted, I think. This is a unit that I haven't quite finished yet, but looking at her kit, I might be interested. As is with all the mid-tier units, I think that they get some more interesting upgrades a lot of the time. So let's take a look. First of all, this support ability stands out to me. Her range +2 for a decrease of evasion rate. Pretty much always going to be run on gunners just because you want that extra range. That's the point. Kill them before they get to you. But now she also gets an increase of critical rate of 15 for herself. So, okay, now we're kind of painting a picture of where Creysse EX is really taking her. And that also goes into her other ability that has been upgraded, where essentially this ability before was nothing special. It was literally just a regular attack ability with 140% modifier. And, it is a double hit ability, which is very nice. But now it's actually increasing critical damage by 25 for herself. So if she does get a critical off, she is doing more damage from this now. But she's also decreasing her AP consumption by 50 for a single turn when performing a critical hit. An interesting ability to be sure, and a welcome one. Anyway, I think that this ability is quite interesting just because it is getting rewarded for hitting a critical by a lot, and that AP consumption down for her for the following turn can be potentially used pretty nicely with her new ability, which is right here, which is a very interesting ability. 165% modifier, and as you can see, it is a direct line in any direction by a fair distance. 3 uses 28 AP, but piercing damage, but decreases jump by 2 or 3 turns when performing a critical hit on the target. Should be noted that jump cannot be reduced below 1 according to the ability. The ability basically states that right here, that you can't go below 1. So if a unit has 1, well, you're not really getting any benefit out of this. But this is kind of a really interesting ability. First of all, it's got an incredibly high range, kind of working into this idea that I originally had with Creysse, which she was more of a sniper kind of character. And this ability kind of removes getting out of a gunner's spots by removing effectively where that unit can go, limiting their range ability in a sense that, gunners just want the unit on the same height as them. That's always the best for those units. So if you were to able to kind of remove them from being able to jump up or down and potentially getting out of range, that's an interesting thing. Now, all of Creysse's kit is essentially based on critical, which is a little concerning to say the least, just because if you think about it, it's a very I was going to say hit or miss, and that is essentially what it is, but I feel like that's just generally kind of a dumb thing to say. Anyway, I just think that this entire kit hinges so much on critical, and whether or not she was a good critical unit before, and whether you can potentially build her to be a critical. I mean, now she potentially works with Cloud's ability to leverage that a little bit more. So she does have some good synergy, but she is essentially pushing, for the most part, a lot of dexterity. There is a little bit of luck by the looks of it, which will generally help her. But I am curious. This is either a unit that's either going to work, I think, like, could be just an interesting potential high roll that works well with other gunners by potentially removing mobility and they're sticking an enemy in a spot where they can't really get out of the way. It's interesting. Also with that new vision card too, it just might be good enough. But Creysse is, if nothing else, really interesting and probably worth a build. I don't know. I'm intrigued, to say the least. So I think that overall I would give her probably a B+, just because I'm really interested to see whether or not the critical ends up being worth it. But yeah, color me intrigued. And now let's just talk about the Golden Girl, the most popular character on the JP side. We have a vote to prove it. Glaciela, and or Glaciela, as she is, Wotv, as she is fully known by her proper moniker. So let's take a look at what she ended up getting, and woo! Happy to be a Glaciela fan today. So taking a look, she basically has gotten 3 abilities that have been essentially upgraded. And we are going to, let me just scroll down and find where they are. So let's take a look at this one first. Actually, no, let's do this one first, because this one is probably the one that we need to start talking about. So this one before was an increased pierce attack by 25 and defense penetration by 50 for 3 turns to self. Not much to say here. This was just a solid ability before for a damager to get and to cast kind of thing. There isn't really too terribly much in the way of changing here. Like, uses are the same, TP use is the same. The big difference is that she's now giving herself some AoE resistance by 20 for 3 turns and magic resistance by 20% for 3 turns. So essentially it makes her a more tanky unit, and this was an ability that you essentially always wanted to use anyway. So this is just a benefit overall. This is a great upgrade to her kit. It makes her more survivable, because as we're about to see, that's kind of where we are going with her. Taking a look into her other ability that has been upgraded, I do believe this is called Valkyrie Drive. I want to say that this was the name of the ability, but I don't exactly remember. Anyway, it is the ability where she jumps and comes in on the enemies and hits surrounding areas around herself. Before, it was 165% modifier and moved to the target panel, 36 AP and 3 uses. Well, now it's essentially been upgraded to do the exact same thing, but the big bonus is that she's decreasing her AP consumption by 40 for 3 turns for herself. I think it's a pretty good upgrade, just because you're getting a fairly big discount for multiple turns. And what's interesting is, again, I think it synergizes better well with what she's been upgraded, because one of the things that was always concerning about this ability is you're moving them very close to your enemy to potentially they're going to hit you, or you're going to be in close enough that maybe other enemies can hit you. But now that she's getting more durability from another ability that was already used just to up her attack, I think this ability is pretty nice, and it's going to give you a reduced AP consumption ability for all your other stuff for multiple turns. So I think it's just really solid. But of course, the last thing to talk about, well, okay, before we get into the grand finale of this, let's take a look at what else she's getting in her kit. So you can see here, we have some agility, we have a bit of this and that, we have a little bit of attack, we have all this kind of stuff, and her main upgrade is going to be an increase in HP, again, buying into the idea that you are upping how much, how durable she is, which is good, because I think it's a theme that's going on here that's going to be paid off in this last ability. A 3-use, 32 AP ability that has a 200% modifier, so a bigger modifier than a lot of her other abilities. You know, she does have a 100% hit chance ability that is a big one with piercing damage and a 35% chance to crit. That was already in her kit, but most of her other abilities are, you know, lower modifiers than that, so getting another high attack one is great. And we see a lot of these job level 25s potentially not being the highest modifier, so that's strong here. But as you can see, it is AoE, it is a little bit flexible, and it does hit 6 panels in the direction of her choosing, and that's pretty big. But you also get a 25% chance to stun here, so really like one of my just earliest conceptions of how you could potentially use this. You put this girl on a team with Titus. Titus ends up giving her haste, uses her buff ability, runs in, does her Valkyrie drive, which or her jump ability, which also reduces her AP cost. She's tankable enough at this point that she's potentially going to take a lot less damage with that new water vision card. And then she hits with this ability, or even if she isn't necessarily target, maybe your tank's close enough that the enemy's still going after the tank, then she can follow up with this brand new ability, which is a hard-hitting ability with that new vision card that also has human killer on it. I think that this is just a very strong build that seems fairly reliable. I think that this is potentially just a very reliable build, and I think that overall her design is pretty nice. I think that here we have just a really good, she gets defensive stuff, she gets more tanky stuff, she gets an improvement to her closing the distance, and then she gets a new AoE attack that is very strong, all with a new vision card. I think that is just an absolute solid, and I know I'm a Glaciela fan, so this will probably come off as just being fanboying and just over evaluating, but I think it's a really solid, reliable strategy that is completely plausible. But, and this brings me to the end of this video where I need to talk about the obvious, just the meta of it all. And the meta of it all currently on the JP side is the fact that we have just a Cloud and Mont, double cost Mont meta kind of thing. And that puts Glaciela in a really interesting spot for exactly how you are going to build your team. Because a lot of the times what you see very currently, like on a lot of teams, is, you are double cost Mont. I guess you could just call him you are Mont, but who is a fire element, who would definitely go more poorly up against Glaciela at this point, as she is like water element and she's just spears. So Mont just might end up taking it a little bit harder from this unit, especially with the new power-ups. I think that she is potentially very good to go up against that. However, the counter to that is the fact that currently on the meta, a lot of the times, other than Black Witch Helena, Robe Witch, Black Helena that you usually see a Thunder unit nowadays. You see Frederica's very often, and you see Clouds incredibly often. Both of those Thunder type units are constantly everywhere in the meta. So how do you do that? Do you make potentially an Earth unit? Do you just pick regular Mont to kind of counter that team? I don't necessarily know, but I think that there's enough here to work with to the point where it might be considering worth just kind of putting this girl on a team with an Earth Elemental character and seeing how far it goes. It's one of those things where I'm actually super interested to test, and it's kind of got me excited about the fact that, it's just a really solid EX. Not much else to say. It's just that question of how good she is in the meta, because she counters something that is very common in the meta, but she also gets countered by something incredibly common in the meta, and I just don't know what the balance of odds there are. I don't know if throwing a Earth Elemental character is going to be the fix to that problem or not, whether it's going to be Rule or potentially Ketone and maybe putting some hate generation on them, or Moraga. I don't know, but again, I think that there might finally be a little bit of pushback to some of the more popular and very common units in the game. It's just going to be one of those things that I'm going to test, but overall, I think that the strength of all of the water package here today is very strong for physical. Very much supports a water physical team that I'm pretty damn happy with. And overall, Creysse, I think, is interesting. I'm curious about how effective her critical will be. because it feels kind of high roll or low rolly, as most of these critical stuff do, but there might not be enough there to actually just make it consistent. But Glaciela does feel very consistent, so that's why I'm just giving her like a solid A, not giving her an A plus, because I don't know, that's just too biased, I guess. So I'm going to hold that back. But anyway, that's all for this video, and we'll talk about the rest of the stuff in the next video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.